There were pancakes on the table, perfectly round, golden, stacked like they were posing for a magazine cover. Blueberries placed with surgical precision. Her favorite syrup warmed in a ceramic pourer we hadn't used in years. She said she wanted to talk, so I made pancakes. She didn't even look at them, just pushed the plate away with the back of her hand like she was brushing off a dead fly. Then she said it. I want one night. With someone else. No preamble. No warning. No drama. Just 5 words that detonated like a bomb in my spine. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just blinked and said, "Is this a joke?" She shook her head. I need to know who I am. That's the part that kills me. Not the fact that she wants to sleep with another man. It's the fact she somehow believes that finding herself means losing me, even for one night. So I did what any emotionally unstable man named Tanner Clyde would do. I calmly walked into the garage, grabbed an old clipboard, wrote 2 options on a piece of lined notebook paper, and placed it on her nightstand like it was a room service menu. I didn't say a word for the rest of the day. I just sat on the couch, holding the TV remote like it was a detonator and waiting for her to read it. Option 1. You get your one night. But after that, I move out, change my number, and leave a voicemail telling your mom what you did. Option 2. We go to couples therapy, but I get one insane favor in return. No questions asked, no rules, and it's going to be deeply uncomfortable for both of us. She read it. Twice. Her hands started shaking. You're serious? She whispered. And I just smiled. Not because I was okay, but because this is the only time I've felt control in months. What happens next is the part one still can't fully explain. Even now, sitting in a bathrobe at 2:13 a.m., eating dry cereal with a wrench in my pocket, don't ask. But trust me, you're not ready for what she picked. The night after I gave her the 2 options, she didn't sleep in our bed. Not because I asked her not to, but because she chose not to. I heard her pacing around the kitchen past midnight. Opened a bottle of wine. Closed it. Opened it again. I think she spilled something, but didn't clean it up. That wasn't like her. Darla was the kind of woman who wiped the counter before crumbs even hit it. But now, she let them sit. Just like she was letting everything sit. When I finally walked in, pretending I wanted water, I found her standing in the dark, staring at the 2-sentence note I'd written. She didn't look mad. She looked fascinated, like a kid trying to solve a riddle carved into a tombstone. I asked her if she'd made a decision. She didn't answer, just turned to me and said, "What does deeply uncomfortable mean?" I smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. More like the kind of smile you give right before a car accident. I told her she'd find out if she picked option 2. That morning, she left the folded paper in the microwave, of all places, with one word circled in highlighter. Favor. Nothing else. No note. No discussion. Just that one word. And I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Power. It didn't last long. I made her wait 3 days. Not to be cruel, but because I needed time to think of what that favor should be. It had to be dramatic, symbolic, personal, something that mirrored what she'd asked me to do. So I came up with it, wrote it down, printed it, sealed it in an envelope like I was proposing marriage all over again. But instead of a ring inside, it was a favor designed to make her earn this so-called growth she said she wanted. That night, I slid the envelope across the dinner table. She didn't open it right away, just stared at me and asked, "Is this punishment?" I said, "No, this is the cost." She opened it. At first, she didn't react. Her eyes scanned the words. Then they scanned them again. And then she looked up at me like I had suggested something illegal. Which, to be clear, I hadn't. I'm not a lunatic. But I had definitely crossed the line between petty husband and cold, calculated game master. She whispered, "You're kidding." I shook my head. The favor was simple. She had to meet someone. A man. Someone I picked. And she had to spend exactly 3 hours with him. At his house. Under his conditions. No phone. No explanations. I didn't say what he would do. I didn't say what she had to do. All I told her was, he owed me a favor. And he agreed to help me test a boundary. I watched her hands tremble. But she didn't tear it up. She didn't scream. She just said, "Who is he?" And I said, "A stranger you already know." She didn't sleep that night either. I know because I heard her shower at 3 a.m. Twice. And the next morning, she put on her good shoes. She didn't say goodbye when she left. She just walked out, dressed in a cream blouse she hadn't worn since our 3rd anniversary dinner, and the good shoes, the beige ones with the silent soles. I watched from the living room window as she stepped into the cab I'd already called. I had prepaid the ride, given the driver the address on a folded piece of paper, and told him to say nothing. Just drive and drop. I even tipped in advance. That's how deeply I was committed to this. She didn't know where she was going. That was part of the deal. She texted me once from the car. I'm doing this. I hope you know what you're doing too. I didn't reply. I just stared at the screen and waited for the read receipt. When it came through, I turned my phone off and slid it under the couch cushion like a confession I didn't want to read again. The man she was going to meet, let's call him Elliot, wasn't really a friend. More like a professional acquaintance with questionable hobbies. We'd crossed paths a few years ago in a freelance contract dispute that ended with us begrudgingly respecting each other. Elliot owed me, and when I called in that favor, I told him I needed something unorthodox. He didn't ask for details, just said, "What's her name, and does she have allergies?" He was that kind of guy, a collector of psychological moments. Not violent, not dangerous, just someone who could make a room feel colder by standing in it too long. The plan was simple. She'd arrive. He'd greet her with nothing but a sealed envelope. Inside it, instructions. She'd have to follow them to complete the favor. I made Elliot swear he wouldn't touch her. No physical contact. This wasn't revenge. It was something else. A recalibration of power. An emotional mirror. While she was gone, the house felt haunted. Not by ghosts, but by the absence of confrontation. It was the first time in our relationship that neither of us was trying to fix something. No fights. No apologies. Just silence and the ticking of consequences. 3 hours passed. No messages. No calls. Just silence. Then, at exactly 6 p.m., I heard the front door open. She didn't walk in angry. She didn't slam it or collapse crying. She just stepped inside like she'd returned from a dentist appointment where something unexpected had happened. I looked at her. Her lipstick was gone. Her hair, slightly messed. Her hands were shaking. But not from fear. From something else. Adrenaline, maybe. Or realization. She didn't speak for a full minute. Just stood there, staring at me. Then she said something I still don't fully understand. "You knew he'd say that to me." I blinked. Say what? She dropped her purse, walked past me, and headed to the kitchen. Poured herself a glass of water. Drank it all in one go. Then she looked at me again, softer this time. "You knew. You planned it all. And I don't know if I should be terrified or impressed." She didn't tell me what Elliot said. Not then. Not even that night. But she did say this. "I don't want my night anymore. Not with anyone. But I don't know what that makes me now." And I wish I could say I felt relief. But all I felt was that something had shifted. Something invisible. Something I might not be able to fix. And the worst part? That was never my endgame. The next morning, she made breakfast like nothing happened. Eggs, toast, a single strip of turkey bacon. Hers, not mine. She always knew I hated that rubbery imposter meat. She didn't ask if I wanted any. Just placed her own plate down, sat across from me, and ate in total silence. Fork to plate. Sip of coffee. Eyes on her food like it had secrets she needed to unravel. I didn't say a word, either. Mostly because I didn't know how. The moment she walked through that door last night, a wall came down between us. Invisible, but heavy. We weren't fighting. But we weren't married either. Not really. It felt like we were two actors in a scene neither of us had rehearsed, hoping the script would write itself. Finally, I broke the silence. I asked her again, "What did he say to you?" She chewed slower. Then put her fork down, wiped her mouth, and looked me dead in the eyes. "I'm not ready to tell you." I blinked. "You agreed to the favor." "I did. And I completed it." "Then why won't you tell me what happened?" Her fingers tapped the table. 3 slow taps, then nothing. She stared at me, long and hard, and said, "Because what happened there has nothing to do with him. It has everything to do with you. And I don't know what you're going to do with it once I tell you." I didn't know what to say to that. It sounded like a riddle, or a warning, or both. She stood up, rinsed her plate, and went upstairs to shower. I just sat there staring at the turkey bacon on her plate, still untouched. I hated how perfect it looked. I hated how every piece of this morning felt staged, like she was trying to act like she still belonged in this house. In our life. In this story. But here's the thing. She wasn't the only one hiding something. What Darla didn't know was that Elliot had sent me a message right after she left his house. A short one. No photos. Just 6 words that I've read at least 24 times now. "Your wife is afraid of mirrors." I didn't know what it meant. Not really. But I felt it. In my gut. Like it was meant to mean more than it said. And that maybe she saw something in herself during those 3 hours. Something raw, or ugly, or real, that she didn't know how to come back from. The rest of the day passed like fog. We didn't talk. She took a long nap. I sat in the garage for 2 hours, not doing anything, just opening drawers and pretending I was looking for something. That night, I caught her standing in front of the hallway mirror. She wasn't brushing her hair or checking makeup. She was just staring at herself, dead still, like she was trying to see something behind her eyes. When she noticed me watching, she didn't flinch. She just said quietly, "I don't think I'm who I thought I was." And I didn't know whether that was her asking for help or a farewell speech. Because what scared me wasn't that she went through with the favor. What scared me was how changed she seemed afterward. Not broken, not angry, just rewritten. Like someone had gone in and deleted a few lines of her soul. And whatever Elliot said, or did not say, was still sitting between us like a loaded weapon we were both pretending didn't exist. But weapons don't stay hidden forever. 3 days passed, and she still wouldn't tell me what happened at Elliot's house. She barely acknowledged the envelope or the favor or the weight it had placed on both of us. But I saw it in her eyes. Every time she walked past a mirror and caught her reflection, she flinched. Not visibly, not dramatically, just for a split second, a tiny muscle in her jaw would twitch, or her eyes would unfocus like she was trying to forget what she just saw. I started testing her, subtly, moving mirrors, cleaning them when she wasn't looking, tilting one slightly toward her side of the bed just to see if she'd notice. She always did, and every time, she quietly adjusted it so she didn't have to look herself in the face. Then came the box. It was small, matte black, no label, no return address. I found it on our porch one morning wedged between a potted fern and yesterday's mail. Darla hadn't seen it yet. I brought it inside, closed the blinds, and sat at the kitchen table staring at it like it might contain a severed finger or a confession. It didn't. It contained a single photograph. It was old, printed on thick paper with a slight bend at the corner. In it, Darla stood next to Elliot, but not the Elliot I knew. This wasn't the sharply dressed, quiet-mannered man I'd seen at networking events. This version of him looked younger, disheveled, barefoot. He stood in a cluttered room surrounded by strange objects. Old dolls, twisted lampshades, a wall of newspapers with words blacked out in ink. But what chilled me wasn't the setting. It was Darla. She looked happy, radiant, even. But something about the smile was wrong. Too wide, too still, like it had been forced onto her face, or like she had forgotten how to smile and was mimicking someone else doing it. Her eyes, though, those were empty. Not sad, not angry, just vacant. On the back of the photo, someone had written in blue pen, "You sent her to a place she had already survived once." I dropped the photo. My hands were shaking. I stood up so fast the chair nearly toppled behind me. My heart was thudding in my ears, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. What did that mean? Had they met before? Had she been to that house already years ago? Why hadn't she told me? I confronted her that night. Waited until after dinner. I didn't show her the photo at first. I just asked one question. "Have you ever met Elliot before I introduced you?" She hesitated. Just long enough. Then nodded, barely. "Once. Years ago. Before you and I." I asked her why she never told me. She said she didn't remember much about it. Just that it was at some kind of art exhibit or basement party. She said it was weird, hazy. She said she didn't think it mattered. So I slid the photo across the table. Her face drained. She didn't touch it. Didn't even look closely. She knew exactly what it was. "I thought that was gone," she said quietly. "I thought that was buried." My voice cracked a little when I asked, "Buried where?" She stood up and walked away. That's all she did. Not a word. Not an answer. Just walked into the guest room, closed the door, and locked it. I didn't follow. I couldn't. Something told me if I did, I'd find more than just a woman hiding from the past. I'd find a version of her I was never supposed to meet. That night, I sat alone in the dark with that photograph on the table in front of me. I traced the edges with my fingers until the corners were soft. And then I flipped it over again. I don't know why. I already knew what it said. But this time, under the original message, new words had appeared in faint pencil. I swear to God they hadn't been there before. "You turned a test into a trap. And now she remembers everything." I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake on the living room couch with the photograph beside me like a haunted artifact I didn't dare destroy. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard something from the guest room. Just a soft thud, like someone dropped a book or kicked the underside of the mattress. I waited, holding my breath, expecting to hear her voice, footsteps, something. But the house stayed quiet, thick with a kind of silence that doesn't happen naturally. It felt built, manufactured, like someone had drained the air of sound on purpose. The next morning, I found her already awake, sitting on the edge of the guest bed with a blank stare and the photograph in her hands. She didn't look tired. She looked drained. Her hair was wet even though I hadn't heard the shower run. Her lips were cracked like she'd been biting them in her sleep. And her hands were trembling, subtle, but constant. When I asked if she was okay, she nodded automatically. That kind of nod you give a stranger who holds the door open, not the man you're married to. I sat down across from her on the floor, close enough to hear her breathing. I didn't speak for a while. I just watched her. Her knees were pulled up to her chest, her eyes fixed on the photo like it was a puzzle she couldn't stop trying to solve. Finally, I asked her, "What did he say to you?" She whispered back, "He didn't say anything at first. Not a word. He just made me sit. Alone. In that room. With everything on the walls. Everything I'd forgotten." I asked what she meant by forgotten. She blinked. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Then, finally, there was a closet. In the room. And something was inside. I didn't open it. But I remembered what was behind it, and that was worse. I didn't know what to do with that. I wanted to shake her, scream, ask 1,000 questions at once. But something about the way she said it told me that whatever she remembered wasn't just painful. It was dangerous. To her. To us. Maybe to both. "I think I was there when I was 19, she continued, her voice now barely a breath. "It wasn't a party. It wasn't art. It was something else. Something I blocked out. And when I walked back into that house, it all came back. Not clearly. Just in flashes. Like static images behind my eyes. A cracked floorboard. A burning candle. A voice that sounded like mine, but I wasn't the one speaking." She broke off and finally looked up at me. Her eyes were wide but glassy, unfocused. I don't know what I said to him. I don't remember. I think I asked to leave after 10 minutes. But when I checked my phone in the cab, 3 hours had passed. Goosebumps crept down my arms. I didn't want to ask the next question. I really didn't. But I had to. "Did he touch you?" Her reaction was immediate and visceral. She jerked away like I'd slapped her. "No," she snapped, eyes flashing. "No, not like that. He didn't touch me. He didn't have to." And then she stood up, walked to the hallway mirror, the one she kept adjusting, and stared at herself for a long, silent moment. "I used to like mirrors," she said. "I used to smile in them, fix my hair, try earrings. Now I just see cracks. Not in the glass. In me." She turned to me and said something I still don't know how to process. "What if the woman you married was a cover story?" I told myself. She walked past me after that, slow and steady, not looking back. I sat there alone in the guest room, heart pounding, brain rewinding every single thing I thought I knew about her, about us. And then I heard it again. That sound. A dull thud beneath the floorboards. Same place. Same rhythm. Like something shifting inside the foundation of the house itself. Like something waking up. I couldn't stop thinking about the sound. That soft, repetitive thud beneath the floorboards. It didn't sound like pipes. It didn't sound like the usual creaks that old houses make when they settle at night. This was deliberate. It had rhythm, purpose. It was coming from under the guest room, specifically under the left corner by the heater vent where we used to store winter blankets we never used. I thought maybe I imagined it. I thought maybe it was stress finally cracking through my brain like a hairline fracture. But then, on the second night, I heard it again, louder this time. 3 knocks. A pause. 3 more. Like someone was signaling from below. That night, after Darla had finally fallen asleep, if you could call it that, she mostly just stared at the ceiling now. I went out to the garage, grabbed the flashlight we used during storm outages, and opened the crawlspace access panel in the hallway closet. I had never been down there. Not once in the 7 years we'd lived in this house. It always creeped me out. I used to joke that it was murderer real estate, the kind of space people only ever talk about in court testimonies. But now I had to go, because something down there wasn't right. The air was cold, sharp with dust and insulation particles. I crawled on my elbows, dragging the flashlight in front of me. Every time I moved, I could feel the floor above me vibrate, the way drywall flexes under weight. I followed the direction of the noise, inch by inch, until I reached the space directly under the guest room. That's where I saw it. A small wooden box. It looked hand-carved, almost antique. Not covered in cobwebs or buried in dirt. Just sitting there, like it had been placed recently. I reached for it slowly, half expecting it to bite me. The box wasn't locked, just latched shut. When I opened it, I found 3 things inside. The first was a key. Old. Brass. Ornate. The second was a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age, no markings on the outside. I opened it and found a list of names. All female. All written in the same looping handwriting. One of them, near the bottom, underlined twice, was Darla's full maiden name. No nickname. No typo. Just 5 letters I had stared at on wedding documents, tax forms, driver's licenses for years. And the third thing was a mirror shard. Just one. Edges smooth, as if filed down. It looked harmless, but I swear the moment I touched it, something pulled behind my eyes. A pressure. Like my brain was trying to rearrange its own filing cabinet to make room for something I had no context for. I didn't tell Darla what I found. Not that night. Not the next morning. I told myself I needed time to process it. That she wasn't ready. But the truth was, I was scared. Not of her, but of what those things meant. Why was her name on that list? Why had someone placed it down there, hidden but accessible? And what was the key for? The next night, she found the box on my desk. She didn't scream. She didn't ask why I'd gone digging. She just looked at it and whispered, "You weren't supposed to find that." I asked her why. She sat down slowly and said, "Because I didn't even know it was real. I thought I made it up. I used to have dreams about that box. I thought it was a metaphor. For trauma. Or childhood. Or something broken I never got fixed. But you found it. Which means it wasn't just mine. It was waiting." Then she looked up at me and said something that changed everything. "That list. Those names. I think the others are gone." I asked her what she meant by gone. She didn't blink when she answered. "I mean, I don't think they exist anymore. I think whoever put that list there didn't just write them down. They erased them." My skin went cold. The idea was ridiculous. Insane. But something in her voice, flat, heavy, completely devoid of drama, made it sound like fact. Like she wasn't speculating. She was remembering. I wanted to throw the box away. Burn it. Drop it in a river and pretend none of it existed. But I couldn't. Because when I held that mirror shard again, I noticed something I hadn't the first time. Scratched into the back, barely visible, were the same 6 words Elliot had texted me after the favor. "Your wife is afraid of mirrors." And now, I think I know why. For 2 days after we found the box, we said almost nothing to each other. Not because we were angry, because words just felt too small for the weight of what we were carrying. We moved like ghosts in the same house, each of us orbiting the mystery between us. Her past, my guilt, the strange list of names, and that key. It sat on the kitchen counter like a dare neither of us wanted to take. On the 3rd day, Darla came into the living room with purpose in her eyes. She was holding the key in her left hand and wearing that same cream blouse from the night of the favor. She said, "I remember where it goes now." I asked her, "Where?" And she simply said, "Come with me." She led me down the hallway, to the attic door, the one we never used because we stored everything in the garage. It wasn't even locked, but behind it was a second panel I'd never noticed before. Hidden behind insulation and drywall, like a panel designed to be forgotten. She reached into the crawl space behind it and pulled back a flap of old fabric. Behind that, a door. Small, wooden, and unmistakably antique. The key fit perfectly. When the lock clicked open, something changed in the air, like the pressure dropped, or maybe just lifted. The room behind the door wasn't what I expected. It wasn't creepy or broken or covered in symbols. It was simple, almost warm. A single window, a dusty writing desk, a corkboard filled with photos, some blurred, some Polaroids, all of people who looked familiar but out of reach, like faces from forgotten dreams. There was a mirror leaning against the far wall, covered by a sheet. She walked over and pulled the cover off slowly. Then she turned to face it, full on. I stayed behind her, silent. "I've been scared of this," she said softly. "But I think it's time." She stared at herself. For minutes. No flinching. No twitching. She just looked. And something softened in her shoulders. Something that had been hard for years, maybe since before we even met. "I don't know who I was in that house with Elliot," she continued. or what really happened when I was younger. But I know this. Every piece of me, even the broken ones, belong right here. In this life. With you. I stepped beside her, looked in the mirror with her, and for the first time in what felt like forever, we didn't look like strangers. We looked like two people who had walked through something unspeakable and somehow came out lighter. That night, we burned the list. We buried the box. We didn't do it out of fear, but as a symbol, a ritual, something to say. We saw the shadow, and we're choosing to walk in the light. We went to bed in the same room again. No silence, no tension, just two hands clasped together, fingers laced so tightly they felt like they'd never come apart again. Weeks have passed since then. No more noises beneath the floor. No more dreams. The mirrors stay exactly where they are. And every now and then, I catch Darla smiling in one. No longer haunted, no longer distant. Just human. Present. Real. I never expected to say this when it all began, but giving her that impossible choice, the favor or the night, was the very thing that saved us. Not because she chose me, but because she chose herself. And this time, she didn't look away.